I'm about to watch Once Upon a Time for the first time, but before I do, a follower sent me this grid of characters from season one so I can guess characters' roles in the show. So I have seen season one, episode one, quite a number of years ago, so I remember a few details, but not a lot. And I also have face blindness, so I'm particularly bad at recognizing characters in shows. So, first off, I'm going to call her Margaret, and she is the evil stepmother, the stepmother of Jack from Cinderella. She's not actually evil, she just doesn't want her son involved in all the chaos and all the magic that's going on, so she makes herself a nuisance, but she's more of like a concerned mother. Then we have Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, and he's a child and remembers who he is, but doesn't want anyone to know for reasons that I'll explain in a different character. He goes into the city with his book of fairy tales to try to convince his biological mother to return to the town to try and awaken everyone because they've all forgotten who they are. Next we have Snow White. She is a kindergartner teacher in the town. Beautiful, lovely lady, very kind, and she becomes the best friend of Emma after she is awakened, and she's very easy to awaken to her real identity because she loves fairy tales so much. Then we have Prince Charming, who is the husband of Margaret and the stepfather of Jack. He becomes a huge nuisance for Emma because he doesn't like that she's hanging around Jack, so he reports her to the chief of police as a stalker and stuff like that. Then, of course, we have Emma Swan, a big city lawyer. She adopted her son when she was much younger, and when he comes back, she's shocked and feels a whole lot of guilt, so she returns him to his parents and then gets involved in the plot because she realizes something really strange really is going on in this town. Next, we have the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland. She is the head of the local HOA, so she goes around the small town like leaving tickets and like anonymous passive aggressive notes for people saying like you left your garbage out too late and stuff like that, so like real passive aggressive, but then becomes truly evil once she's revealed to her true identity. Next we have the Big Bad Wolf, and he becomes reluctant friends with Jack, kind of like in Resident Alien, if you've seen that show. He's not actually evil, he just gets a lot of flack for like sniffing around, and he kind of looks like a homeless guy, but he's actually very, very kind. Next we have the evil stepsister, so the stepsister of Emma, and she is a middle school teacher, and she works for the the bad guys, so if any of the kids start to realize their true identities, she alerts the bad guys, kind of like in Wayward Pines, if you've ever seen that show. Next we have Little Red Riding Hood, and she works in a bakery making custom cookies and cakes. She loves fairy tales as well, so she also becomes friends with Snow White and Emma, but she has a real beef with the Big Bad Wolf, so like they have like an enemies to lovers type thing going on. Next we have the Ogre from Jack and the Beanstalk. So he is the enemy of Jack, and he's also the boss of Emma in the real world, so he keeps calling her and being like, you're gonna get fired because you're taking unauthorized time off, etc., etc. Next we have Rumpelstiltskin, and I don't know how I know that this is Rumpelstiltskin, but I just somehow know. Maybe it's from a gif on social media. But he's not actually evil, he's just under a witch's curse, and he really wants someone to guess his real name, so he just like inserts himself into the plot in certain ways in order to try and make that happen so that he can be freed from this curse. Next we have the Huntsman, and he becomes involved in a love triangle with Snow White and another man, but he's the one the audience roots for because he's rugged and he's very kind, and he's the one Snow White eventually ends up with. Then we have Belle from Beauty and the Beast. She is an incredible singer, but every time her coworkers and friends take her out to karaoke, she refuses to sing until one day she finally does sing, and that is when Emma convinces her, and that's how she remembers her real identity. Next we have the grandmother from Little Red Riding Hood, and she lives deep in the woods and is mostly ignored by the townsfolk, except when she comes out on the farmers market days and sells all of her things made out of furs. Let me move my face here. Next, we have Sleeping Beauty, and she is mostly stuck in her house because she has narcolepsy, so if she leaves, she falls asleep in random places, and she's scared of hurting herself or someone else. This is a bridge troll. He is clearly a villain, and I'm going to say that he is a henchman for the Red Queen. This woman in the corner, this is Ursula the Sea Witch. She is a piano teacher who spends most of her days whapping her students' fingers with a big long stick. And she gets involved with Belle as like a record producer when she's trying to steal Belle's voice. Then we have Colin, a medical examiner from the real world, who's called to investigate after Emma stumbles over a dead body in the fairy tale world. But he is not a fairy tale figure, and he's only involved in order to bring like the real life and insert it into Emma's life. Then we have Garth, a detective from the real world and a love interest for Emma. He helps her even though he does not believe in the fairy tale stuff at all, and eventually he gets killed off in a super tragic way that just devastates the fans. Next we have Roy, a police captain and Garth's boss. He's not a villain, he's just a regular guy who's very confused as to why his subordinate keeps getting involved with these very strange cases. And these are my guesses, so we will see if any of them are correct. I got a couple more videos like this to come, and then I will be starting watching the show.